All right, hello, my name is Darren Thomas, and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. And this is going to be an introduction to SQL. So, SQL stands for a Structured Query Language. It is a language used for accessing data inside a database. Now, we're not going to be learning how to build databases and all those things like that. What we are going to focus on is, how to pull data and manipulate data from a database using SQL language. So, why don't we go ahead and go over to our database manager? This is our little friend here called dbeaver. We're going to be using this tool to access information from whatever database that we're using. And so for these examples, we're going to be using a database from Kaggle that's going to be sharing with us data from NBA basketball players, their salary, what team they're on, free throws, etc. Again, it's available on Kaggle if you're curious. Now, moving more back and focusing on dbeaver, this is a free database manager that you can download off the internet. This is one of the reasons why we use this as a tool. Now, I'm not going to go over all the details of how to connect stuff and things like that. I want to focus more on pulling data. But if you do choose to download this particular data set, which I already mentioned is available on Kaggle, you will have to connect it to that database manager so that it can access it. You don't import. Now, for those of you who are kind of new at this, and this is a mistake I made when I was first learning, you always want to import things. That's not quite how it works with a database. Databases, you have to connect them. So over here you can see, if you go in the upper left-hand corner, you can see something called New Database Connection. You will, of course, connect your database, whatever it is here, whatever language it is. So select the language as an example, and then you have to find the path, and you can pull it from wherever it comes from on your computer. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, as we go through this experience, we're going to learn a handful of commands today. Select, from, limit, and order by. Those are the commands that we're going to learn in this particular experience. Now, across the bottom here is the output of what is actually inside the database. This is already here because I've already been manipulating and using data, putting code into this to learn things. Up here is your script editor. And so when you type your commands here, and then they will pop up below, down here, in this area right here. So you can see that it's very structured. It's columns. It's basically like an Excel spreadsheet, except the power of a database is obviously much higher than what you can do in Excel. You can have multiple tables. People can be putting stuff in at the same time. You can link things, can link tables through primary and foreign keys, etc. But we're going to keep it simple for now. What we're going to do now is we're going to learn how to use the select and the from command. Those are probably the first two commands that you're going to learn when you go through this experience. Now, if you notice something here, this particular database manager will complete the code as you type it. So select is basically you're trying to tell SQL what particular column you want from whatever table you're working with. So when I'm talking about table, I'm talking about the actual data inside the database. It can have way more than one table. So for our purposes, we're going to put an asterisk, and what that's telling SQL is take all of the columns inside the table. Now, the next thing is the from command. The from command is where you give the name of the table you want. And so for us, you can see that it completes it here. We're looking for season stats. So I'm just going to click on that. Now, one of the things that this data manager likes to do is it likes to automatically give like an alias, I guess, or a little shorthand, an SS. So I'm going to have to delete that. That's unique to my program. We're going to always call it season underscore stats. Now, notice the underscore here. This is because you cannot have spaces. They can often cause problems. So we use the underscore instead. Now, in this particular program that I'm using, I can press Control Enter, and you can see that all my information appears right here at the bottom. So let's see here. If I do it again, there you go. Now you can see it pops up. And so this is information on basketball players from I believe 1950 all the way to 2017. So almost the entire history of the NBA, almost the whole thing. And so you can see that my data pulled up here. I have all of my columns. I can drag across like this to see all the different columns that are available to me, points, turnovers, etc. So it appears everything is going well. Now, we're going to add one more new command as we continue here. And we're going to use the command called limit. What limit does is that it limits how many rows of data you see. So right now I'm seeing all the rows of data, which is not a big deal because this is not all that big of a database or table, excuse me. But if I'm, millions and trillions, that could be overwhelming. And it could also take a long time to load depending on the strength of your computer. So if I type in limit and then I put in the number, say we'll just say 10, what's going to happen now is that it's only going to output the first 10 rows. So I press Control Enter, and you can see now we have rows 1 to 10 here, and it limits how much of the information that we see, which is very, very, very convenient when, of course, you have a large table as an example. Now, the last command that we're going to learn today is called order by. And this is where you can sort your data based on a numerical value, like from highest to lowest, whatever. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add this right here. I don't know if it makes a difference to order, but this is the one that works. And we're going to use the command called order by. So order by, like so. And then what we're going to do is we have to tell it by what column do you want to order your data by. And so we're going to pick age. Age is right there. It's one of the tables here. Now you can see dbeaver is helping you out a little bit. It's giving you some information about it, age. It even tells you what column number it is. So it's the 5th column from the left. If you look at the table at the bottom, it tells you what data type it is, real. Again, these are all things that might be important for you as you become more familiar with SQL and all these things of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and press Control Enter. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is I need to add the argument called descend. In other words, I want it from highest to lowest. I want to know who is the oldest player down to the youngest in my top 10 here. And so when I do that, I get my 10 rows because I'm still using the limit command. And so now you can see I have the top 10 oldest players in the NBA at the time that this data was collected. Kevin Willis was 44. I'm right here in case you don't know where I'm at. Robert Parrish was in here. Again, they were not playing at the time, but these are like the oldest players of all time, if you will. Because, even Bob Cousy is down here and he hasn't played, in 50 years. If I remove this command, let's see here. You can see now I get blanks because for some players, they don't have data for them. And we're going to learn how to deal with missing data later on. So you can see that there's some problems here that for the age category, I have some null values here. So that's why that's like that. But if I put back descend, I get the oldest players to ever play in the NBA, at least according to the data that was collected here. So that is pretty much it for this particular video. So what we learned is that we learned about SQL, the structured query language that we use for pulling data from databases. And from there, I talked a little bit about this particular program that I'm using, which is a course called dbeaver, which is this is the community edition that you can use for manipulating data if you have various databases that you want to use. Also, we talked a little bit about how to connect. Make sure you know how to do that. Otherwise, you'll have problems if you're new to this. And we talked about several commands that are probably the first commands you're going to learn if you're experiencing SQL for the first time. Select, which of course is telling what columns you want to pull data from. From, which is telling it what table you want to pull data from. Order by, which is going to, of course, rank it based on whatever column you pick. And also limit, which reduces how many rows of output you see when you are working with your data. So my name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. This is an introduction to SQL. Thank you for watching. Take care.